Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to AQSA is calling. My name is Faraz Patel. I will be in your company for the next 45 to 50 minutes. Well, last week, a ceasefire was, of course, established between Palestine and Israel. Well, the ceasefire means that there is a temporary halt to any fighting that happens, but of course, the institutional problems still remain, the humanitarian problems still remain, and of course, basically, it doesn't really solve anything that will be happening or will change anytime soon. So, of course, we wait to see what will happen with regards to how long the ceasefire will be extended. It has entered its third day, but of course, the groundwork, what is happening right now in Gaza, what happened in Sheikh Al Jarrah, still remains. Well, to discuss this, of course, and to discuss, legal perspective with what's going to be going on, of course, earlier today, we have a South African group that wants to charge Israel for crimes against humanity. So they will be taking this to the International Criminal Court. Of course, it's called the Al-Aqsa docket. And of course, this is something that could sort of push forward any chance of the Israeli cabinet, along with its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to potentially face these crimes against humanity. Well, joining me via Zoom is somebody who is well known to the show. He's one of the founding members of the Al Mizan Foundation, and of course, its general director is none other than Abdullah Rifat. Abdullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you, Abdullah. Abdullah, before obviously we discuss, any sort of legal conversation, I just wanted to get your view, of course, on the ceasefire. And I know right now in Palestine it was greeted with some cheer, but you and I had this conversation quite a few days ago. It doesn't solve the institutional problems and, of course, the problems that still exist in so many of the Palestinian lands.
Yes, definitely. First of all, thank you for having me again on the show and for your support actually that you have been giving to us as Palestinians. But as you say, definitely that this is only a ceasefire. The war is still continuing. When there is a ceasefire, doesn't mean that the war is over. Sheikh Jarrah is still, the people in Sheikh Jarrah are still under threat of being evacuated, being displaced, not just evacuated, being displaced from their homes, kicked out of their homes. Gaza is still under siege, and that is a form of war, as a matter of fact, and people in Gaza still, suffering from the destruction that was left behind. Some of the bombs that didn't explode at that time are now still are in danger of exploding at any moment, and those bombs fell on houses. And basically, just in short, like the war is still continuing. This is just a ceasefire. We know that it is actually, it's a victory for the Palestinians generally, because Palestinians all across Palestine participate in this last, in a way, battle. But it's a battle that is a bit different, because we can, and I'm telling you now, you can mark on this battle to be taught in the future as a turning point in the history of Palestine.
Yeah, and I think that's important because, you've mentioned again, a ceasefire doesn't mean stop the fighting. There's been many ceasefires. We saw that in 2014, we saw that in 2008, because there will always be another sort of, bombardment of Gaza, another bombardment of any other area. So, what needs to be done now in order to make sure that more awareness is brought to any potential bombing that could occur in Palestinian lands?
As Mohammed Al-Kurd actually said, we need to already start planning our next protest, because we know that Israel, I wrote a few days ago on my social media, I said that Israel will soon break the ceasefire. And remember, as I said, this is, there are different forms of war. Because, we shouldn't only pay attention to what's happening in Palestine when the bombs are falling actually on the people in Gaza. Because as I say, the siege on Gaza is a form of, war. The attacking Masjid al-Aqsa is still continuing. And exactly the next morning, on Friday morning or afternoon, the Israelis also raided Masjid al-Aqsa again. And remember, though, everything actually started with Israelis raiding Masjid al-Aqsa in the first place. So they didn't really stop. The war is still continuing. It is a ceasefire from bombing Gaza, and vice versa. Also, the people in Gaza stopped defending themselves, basically. But again, the war is not over. What is necessary to do now is, again, to plan the next protest. I see that yesterday there was lots of protests in South Africa, East London, Cape Town, and many other places. And there have been some demands, like to expel the Israeli ambassador and so on. And we need to basically now take be proactive instead of waiting for the next genocide. In a way, in Gaza, we need to be proactive and now pressure Israel before they even start bombing to stop it, And to now, I think the next point that we need to demand is to lift the siege from Gaza and to stop expelling Palestinians. Today, I was reading that on Wednesday, there is a court hearing in Jerusalem for another 86 families are going to hear about the also forced removal from their homes. So it's not only Sheikh Jarrah. Now this time it's in Silwan, and that's another side of Jerusalem. So they, in a way, they're attacking the northern side of Jerusalem, now the southern side of Jerusalem, to empty those places from Palestinians so settlers can move into these places.
That's why I want to bring you into this, Abdullah, and of course, this is a field that you are well versed in. There are still Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. There are still the evictions that are happening at this very moment, which means the legal battle will always continue. So, just give the viewers an idea, a breakdown of what is happening with regards to that. You mentioned Sheikh Al Jarrah, you mentioned Silwan, and then of course you've got the Palestinian prisoners who are still in Israeli captivity. So, the work of Al Mizan, what's now the next phase with regards to that?
So there are a few urgent things. One is to document the crimes that are being committed now. So Israel, since Ramadan, they have been arresting, activists. Over 1,000 activists were arrested. But now we see that Israel is also continuing to arrest, and they launched actually a campaign to arrest another 500 activists. They all I could be one of them. I don't know. And they took my neighbor the other day. When was it? Last week they came to take my neighbor, and another neighbor was arrested already in Ramadan. He was also arrested, and they are now going through a campaign. I'm not sure if you have seen, or the viewers have seen any of the videos of how they are arresting the youngsters. They actually brutally beat them up, in the process. Besides, the house evictions or forced removal from the houses, I think the most urgent thing now is to protect these youngsters who actually went out to express their anger and their frustration about the injustices that are happening here at home. So what Israel is doing now, they are intimidating these youngsters so they don't, go again in the future in case if they want to raid Jerusalem again. So they are targeting the leaders of every protest. And now that our lawyers are busy with that. Today, I see that one of the leaders, Sheikh Kamal Khatib, for example, he was also arrested I think just after Eid, and today there was another hearing. I just heard now that that they agreed to release him, alhamdulillah. This is actually good news, but but they put very difficult conditions. They will probably force him to live somewhere far from his town, and there will be some hard conditions. But again, I think it's really good that shows that the hard work that have been done by the lawyers, and we want to protect the younger generation from being arrested, from being harassed, and we try to document any violations against humanity, so we can later on submit these documents and these recordings to international bodies like the ICC or ICJ and all the relevant, human rights organizations on an international level.
Yeah, Abdullah, you know what has been interesting also, and you know from a media perspective, the silencing of media. Now, there's one thing you can't silence, that is social media, and we've seen social media videos. I mean, that's the only way we're able to actually get the real accuracy of what is going on at this very moment. The power of social media, Abdullah. I know on your Instagram you've put so many interesting videos that a lot of us don't really see. Just give us the power of social media and how it has changed so much in 2021 during these fresh attacks from the Israeli Defense Force.
You see, this is a very interesting, actually, question. Social media has been, I would say, a very powerful tool for the Palestinians, and I think it was, you know, as much as Israel hated, you know, the say Palestinians in Gaza defending themselves, the rockets that were manufactured in Gaza to basically again to protect Palestinians, they hated social media even more because we were in a way exposing Israel. I mean, you have seen this. Yaakov, the guy who is now in Sheikh Jarrah, he became so famous now. There are memes about him in social media.
Internet sensation.
Exactly how ignorant he is, and he is actually helping the Palestinians with his, you know, his really comments. Because even though we are not surprised that they are that racist, they are that blatant about their racism, but now we have the opportunity to show it to the international community. I would say that the social media campaigns were so successful to the extent that some media houses like Al Jazeera, for example, they copied some of the methods that some of the activists were doing. Like if I give examples of two Palestinian girls, besides Muna al-Kurd, who was always, you know, posting on her social media, there was also Ala Hamdan and Muna, what's her, I forgot her surname. Muna Hawa, sorry. So they were also like, they have lots of followers on social media. So they would live stream from wherever they are with activists from Gaza, other activists from the West Bank, and other activists maybe from Jerusalem, and connect to the international community. And they would have, at any time you open, you know, you go to the Instagram pages or Facebook, you will see between 10,000 to 40,000 people viewing 24/7. You see, and then when I noticed that Al Jazeera, for example, they copied that style where they go with activists on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you know, channels they have, to also do something similar. That just proves that, you know, social media was very effective. We've seen that, say, Benny Gantz, for example, he called for a meeting with Facebook and Instagram to ask them to delete the content, the Palestinian content. But then we saw also on Instagram contacting Ala Hamdan to ask her to come to meet them so they can also take her recommendations. Because when we see that actually Facebook and Instagram, they were listening and they were biased towards Israel, there was a campaign to actually downgrade like the what do you call it? Sorry.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, to sort of hold.
My brother is filming me here, so he's distracting me.
Okay.
But I'm just saying. Okay. So what happens is that there was a campaign. There was a campaign to, you know, to downgrade, to review basically Facebook and Instagram with 1 star instead of 5 stars, and based on that they lost lots of you know lots of the, I would say, their shares were, you know, were downgraded, and then they had to listen to our complaints, and they called for a meeting with Ala Hamdan so they can call her to ask her why there is that campaign is happening, and then to basically change the narrative and to say that, listen, we are not going to cover, and I'm sure you noticed that they used to cover the Palestinian content. They still do that, but it's less than before, and we need to keep fighting until these mega companies, they listen to us. Because we realize that we do have the mass power. You know, people on the ground are on our side, alhamdulillah.
And of course, public opinion is changing quite slowly. Abdullah, we'll be back after this break. Of course, we're going to be discussing that Al-Aqsa docket and, of course, what it could mean for the Palestinian people should there be any progress with regards to that. Stay tuned. Welcome back to AQSA is Calling. I'm still in conversation with one of the founding members of Al Mizan. It's none other than Abdullah Rifat. Abdullah, Jazakallah again for staying with us. Abdullah, the Al-Aqsa docket, now it's of course been established by a few lawyers here in South Africa, notably Mr. Yusha Tayob. Just, Abdullah, if you can give us an idea of the knowledge that you have, and most importantly, how do you see this progressing, especially of it getting to the International Criminal Court and allowing there to be a trial for the cabinet members and that, of course, of Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu?
Of course, as from what I remember from the Gaza docket is that it's an aim, it's a campaign from South African lawyers to basically persecute the South Africans who participated in the Israeli war in 2014, if I remember correctly, or one of the wars that Israel launched on Gaza. So, and it is actually the right step from lawyers in South Africa because it goes against the South African law. South Africans are not allowed to participate in a war in a foreign country. Yet there are many South Africans who do that, I think that there was a time where they got stuck with the legal process there in South Africa. But now we see that the ICC is interested in investigating that, the war crimes that were committed in Palestine, in the wars, in the previous wars. And we saw that the ICC has also been watching this last attack in Gaza. I would say maybe South Africans then can, in a way, collaborate and send their whatever evidence they have to the International Criminal Court. And obviously, South Africans have a massive experience with, they have a massive experience with fighting against apartheid and, fighting against, war crimes and so on. And Israel is committing war crimes. They still continue up until now, breaking international law and, committing war crimes. The issue that the ICC is facing now is that there are certain countries like the United States, and even Israel itself also, obviously, they are not cooperating with the ICC. And that does poses a major, challenge to the legal process, even though we hope that the ICC will continue, investigating, regardless of what the US and other major, powers say, because that's the right thing to do. We hope that it doesn't get stuck again, but, they are still in the initial stages. And we hope they continue. From our side, as friends of Mizan South Africa and Mizan here in Palestine, we have documented lots of evidence that that do rise to count as violations of international law and crimes against humanity and so on. And now our evidence, the ICC already have some of those evidence. We're busy collecting more evidence, and we will try to work with them. Although I must say that it's really, really difficult since Israel, wouldn't allow us, and we will, if we do, work closer to the ICC, we might be banned from working here, which is something that obviously we don't want because there are lots of work to be done here on the ground. But at the same time, we try our best as Mizan here to work with all the relative, international bodies to hold Israel accountable.
Yeah, Abdullah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that because there's also the United States who may just have some sort of a role to play in this. Is that a cause for concern for those who really want to seek truth and justice for what has happened in the last 2 weeks, but not just for the last 2 weeks, but over so many decades of what Israel has committed?
You know what, there is big concerns. I mean, if you look at Biden himself, he's from that old generation that still feels sorry for, for Israel. But now the younger generation doesn't, and we, I would consider myself from the younger generation, we see the reality. If you look at the Democrats, for example, the younger generation, they are, not as manipulated as Joe Biden himself. There is resistance, and I think that is like some progress in the US. We look at the future. We know that we have no hope in the older generation, those who helped Israel throughout the past years to commit crimes and to get away with it. But as I said, this particular battle that happened now in this, this year, since Ramadan, is going to be a changing point for the future, and we'll start counting. You see now that there was financial support that was supposed to be sent from the United States to Israel, but then there was some objections from certain members in the Democratic Party, and we know that the US is not going to change easily, not anytime soon. I've seen some comments from South Africans who said that, even Nelson Mandela was stayed on the terrorist list in the US, in America's terrorist, and up until 2008. I'm not 100% sure
yeah, it
about
was 2008, 2008, yes.
Okay, so if you confirm that, it is, so we are not surprised, the US has always been on the side of the wrong, of the side of the oppressors. But we bank on the masses on the ground. We bank on the consciousness of the younger generation, inshallah.
Yeah. One final question, Abdullah. Speaking about the masses on the ground, we've seen celebrities come out. I'm going to start, of course, in football. We saw Riyad Mahrez yesterday when Manchester City, of course, won the Premier League title. We saw Paul Pogba, Amand Diallo. We saw Hamza Chowdhury. We saw Wesley Fofana. Of course, 5 soccer players so far who have, of course, waved the Palestinian flag in their respective games. And we saw from a celebrity point of view, Bella, Gigi Hadid, of course, they came out and protest. We saw Roger Waters of the band Pink Floyd. He came out. Susan Sarandon, a famous Hollywood actress. This surely does change the public perception of what's going on in Palestine. It hasn't taken a significant step, but it's taken a small step in curing the ignorance of what is really happening in Palestine at this moment. As a Palestinian, Abdullah, does that give you some comfort that there are people of these statures that are looking at this and saying what Israel is doing is wrong?
Yes, definitely. I'm happy, and also I feel proud. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll bring your attention to this, to the point that actually, it came to a point where supporting Palestine now openly, is a source of pride, because back in the days, we don't remember any celebrity coming forward and supporting Palestine. As a matter of fact, most celebrities, they were proud of their support to Israel. And now we see, like, say, Gal Gadot, I think, she who plays Wonder Woman, she's under fire now for supporting Israel, for being a soldier. So it's turning, the wheel is turning the other way around. Supporting Palestine is in the mainstream. That's actually an achievement for the masses themselves, that they support, these celebrities to be more free to express themselves. That's a very important point that we actually need to tell everybody who's listening, that your support for Palestine has convinced and given, we gave support and strength to celebrities like that to be free to express their views. We thank them so much for being brave enough to come forward and wave the Palestinian flag, which is very important to raise consciousness and to raise awareness about what's happening in Palestine. And that's amazing. We in Palestine, people are so happy and we're so proud. Like Riyad Mahrez now is called the pride of Arabs, the pride of the Arab world in the United Kingdom. But I also don't want to take this from the masses. For those who have been working every single day to support, the Palestinian struggle, so it becomes that big and that strong to give confidence to these celebrities to be free again, and from the market, because back in the day they were always like scared of coming out forward and supporting Palestine. Many celebrities paid heavy prices. We remember, say, Abu Treka. I'm not sure if you remember.
Yes,
Abu
I remember
Treka,
Mohammed Abu Treka.
exactly, for Al Ahli. He paid a heavy price for writing it on his T-shirt, "Free Gaza." You see, and he was one of the people who led. He was one of the first celebrities to come out and speak, and we must, recognize that. And again, we are very proud. Everybody here is like really happy to see, these soccer players and other celebrities, coming forward and supporting Palestine. Alhamdulillah.
Abdullah Rifat, we'd like to say shukran, jazakallah so much for making the time for us. And of course, we definitely will be keeping in touch during the week, and of course, getting more updates with regards to what is happening on the ground immediately after the ceasefires happen. Shukran so much, Abdullah.
Shukran to you. Shukran so much.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Abdullah Rifat, he's of course quite famous here. Everyone knows him from ITV Networks. He's really doing amazing work with Al Mizan in trying to get prisoners from Palestine free in those Israeli jails. Well, after the break, we'll be back with AQSA is Calling. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to AQSA is Calling. If there's one organization that continues to do amazing work on the ground from a humanitarian perspective, it's none other than the gift of the givers. And of course, when the crisis had begun in Gaza, when of course it kicked in Sheikh Al Jarrah, there was of course an organization, none other than the gift of the givers, that were there assisting the people. And I have the pleasure of welcoming to the show the Middle Eastern representatives for the organization. It's none other than Dr. Malik Righaila. Dr. Malik, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for having me in this meeting.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Dr. Malik, we've seen what has happened, of course, in the last few days, the ceasefire that, of course, had occurred. That just makes life a bit easy for Gift of the Givers to go ahead and really distribute what is necessary, the needs for the people.
Yes, actually, once the ceasefire taken place, we discovered the amount of destructions that left in Gaza after the war. And really, yes, during the war, we have started our work, and our intervention started urgently once the war started. But really, the movement and the work of our worker was very, very difficult. So that's why now we started to collect the information and the things about the people and the families who been affected by the war. Actually, now we focusing to help and give treatment for those who been injured, and also the families who lost their houses or their houses was affected partially. So this is the main now work that we do on the ground. Really, it is not an easy mission for us, because even our team, our people who are helping us, who are working with us, they already now, traumatized. So it is not an easy, mission to manage. But alhamdulillah, by the efforts by the contributions from our brothers and sisters in South Africa, and also by the support that we did here from South Africa, from the government, from the community, from the people. So also that gives them, today morning we have been in meeting with them, and every day we tell them what we have here and how people they thinking about Gaza, thinking about the humanitarian situations there, and that gives them strength to continue, alhamdulillah. So now we reached many places. As I mentioned, the main focus now is on the injured people, the hospital, the medical supplies for the hospitals, And the other thing is the families who lost the houses, because remember now we have in Gaza more than 1,100 destroyed houses, destroyed the residential places or units, and 150 of them is a big building, like residential towers. So each tower has from 40 to 60 families. So it is not, I mean, we have now many families who need help. Some of them now, they don't have any, even their work, their business were destroyed. So they need, at least for this month, they need something to survive until they be able to start their life again. So this is the main things. I don't know if you have another inquiries or...
Yeah, sure. No. We are going to be getting to that, Dr. Malik. And I think one of them is, of course, hospital facilities and healthcare. I was talking to a brother from Palestine, Ahmed, in Gaza, to be specific, and he told me when he was in Shifa Hospital and another hospital that they are in need of not just, a treatment for those who are wounded, but of course COVID-19. And COVID-19 continues to, haunt Gaza, that being an open air prison, and of course so many families that are being affected by it. So they're dealing with two pandemics, they're dealing with, of course, COVID-19 and the other, dealing with the wounds of what had happened in the last week. So if you can give us an idea of what the work gift of the givers are doing in order to make sure that they can assist with regards to that, focusing, of course, on dealing with COVID-19 along with other factors.
Yeah. COVID-19 issue needs to depend on many things to control the people and the spreading of the virus. One of them is to, number one, the protections like the masks and the things, the sanitizer and these materials. And number two, to manage or to control the movement of people. Now, during the war, everything was, messed up, and people, they have to move, to leave their houses and to go to some schools, shelters. So what we did, we started to distribute hygiene kits, the sterilizers, masks, also to give them new material to live inside the shelter and to have space, social distance between each other. So this is the main thing now we did during the war. Now, after the war, the hospitals, they need a lot of oxygen, they need a lot of medical supply to be able to manage the people of COVID-19. Alhamdulillah, we currently the hospitals, because this war we don't have mass casualties. The total people who arrived to the hospital is 2,000 people. If you divide them to the all hospitals in Gaza, alhamdulillah, they could have managed. They managed the receiving of the patient, of the injured people. But now the hospitals already are exhausted before even the war. They have no medical supply. They don't have, the needed equipment. And even now, during the last war, the main laboratory that was dealing with COVID tests was destroyed. So also it's a big issue for them. But to be honest, now the health system, the health sector, they don't think about COVID-19 as big headed for them, because the injured people, some of them they are amputated, some of them they need follow-up surgical operations, so they have more challenge than COVID-19. But we depend on the consciousness of the people on the ground. So that's why we still distributing the hygiene kits for the people in the cities, and we try also to help the health system by sending medical teams to do awareness to the people, to keep them away from each other. Of course, in this disaster, you can some workers, they can't stay home. They have to go to work because there is a lot of rebel now. There is a lot of destruction, and they need now to clean everything and to remove this. So we hope, alhamdulillah, there is no risk signs for COVID-19 now issue, but within 2-3 days, if we didn't remove and clean the destructions and the rebel and remove the rebel, then it would be not just COVID-19, it would be another issues with because this area, all this destructed area now is a source for infection and new disease. So this is now the most worried of the Ministry of Health there in Palestine.
Dr. Malik Reghela, we are going to be coming back to you. We're just going to be going for a break, and we will be continuing the conversation, this time shifting to the needs of the children and education. So do stay tuned to AQSA is Calling. Welcome back to AQSA is Calling. I'm still in conversation with Dr. Malik Reghela from the Gift of the Givers. Dr. Malik, Jazakallah again for staying with us. Children, education, the empowerment, it's taken another massive hit for the youth of Gaza. Dr. Malik, if you can give us an idea of the work that is being done by the Gift of the Givers in trying to at least put some sort of stability for the children in getting their life back again.
Actually, as you know, children and women are the most vulnerable category of the community. And unfortunately, like this event usually keep, big impacts in their life. And that's why our urgent intervention is very, very important for them. Alhamdulillah, Gift of the Givers since many years has been looking after the childhood, the children and the women in Palestine and even in Syria. But that's why we established in Gaza after 2 wars in 2012. We established a big center for the women and care child and care care center to give special sessions for the children. Currently, because the situation in the ground is not yet settled, so that's why we started, which we call it group sessions, just to provide urgent and general treatment for group of children together. So we try to do a kind of, parties for them, because especially that that war came through during the Eid time. So most of the children, they were already dreaming to have their Eid clothes during the Eid. So that's why they are so traumatized. We try now to help them to pass this trauma by starting this general activities with the children. But it is not easy mission, to be honest with you, especially that when they see the destruction everywhere. Some of them, they saw the children, killed children, in the front of them. So it is not easy, but that's what we try to do currently. Then now we have many workshops with psychiatrists and specialists who will start now to do like face-to-face or one-to-one sessions with each children. Now we have sudden or urgent or current symptoms that appear on the children, and we have something that will appear after 2-3 months. Like, for example, we discovered that from the last wars, we discovered that some of the children, they look good, they are okay when you talk with them, but we started to notice that their academic progress is very bad. They don't do well in the schools. When we start to do what we call it early discovering program to check what's the problem with the children of Gaza, we discovered that some of them, they have problem with their hearing system, because from the current bombing, they lost some of the hearing ability, so they can't hear properly. Now, when you talk after the war directly, when you talk with the children, you can't notice that. Then number two, also currently, most of the children, they can't sleep well. Actually, like I told you, we have meetings every day now with our team on the ground. One of the issues now that most of the children, they can't sleep all the nights, because they are, thinking that something will happen. So that's why it is a big challenge for us. But alhamdulillah, we have infrastructure already in Gaza about, for the children. So we are going to use that facility. Education is very important, and I think, as you know, the education rate in Palestine or among Palestinians is the best or the highest in the world, because we believe that education is important weapon, if I can say that, for us to carry on with our with our course, with our daily life. So alhamdulillah, we now sponsoring 2 preschools, and besides that also we try to cover some of the expenses of the schools. Unfortunately, during this war, there is 3 schools were destroyed completely, and there is more than I think 50 or 49 schools were affected partially. So we are going now, inshallah, to help them to rebuild again and to renovate their classes. So this is our main work in education.
Dr. Malik, one final question for you. I wish we had more time to continue this discussion, but what more needs to be done? Because we've seen the destruction in Gaza, how it has really ripped apart families, taken away so many family members, and really just destroyed the lives of people who just want peace, stability, and the ability to just live in harmony with each other. I know the gift of the givers continues to push to help these people, but what more needs to be done in your view to make sure that even if they do not complete, the full cycle of their lives in getting what it is that they need to achieve from a human perspective, but just at least getting nearly there in helping them to restart their lives?
I will start by saying that, number one, Jazakumullah khair, thank you for all the brothers and sisters in South Africa, because really your support is helping us to extend our services. Now, currently, we are working to remove and to clean the result of the war, but on continuous or long-term work, we need to support the families who lost their breadwinners, or who lost, some of them, they didn't lose the breadwinner, but each injured people who can't now move, actually his family is also totally paralyzed. So we are going, or already we started the program to sponsor those families for, like 1 year, 2 years, until they be able to be able again to earn some income, to be independent, inshallah. So this is now the urgent one, injured people, and removing and cleaning the result of the war. Number 2, for the long term, is to sponsor the orphans, the widows, the families who lost their breadwinners, or the families who already has injured people among them. Inshallah, we hope that we can do that. Now, for now, we started with 100 families. We sponsoring them, and also we have some partners in South Africa. Jama'at Ulama, they started also to work with us. So inshallah, hopefully we can cover more than that, and inshallah we promise you, inshallah, after months maybe we will show you some results of that, inshallah, sponsorships, inshallah.
No, alhamdulillah, and we look forward to, of course, continuing the conversation with you, Dr. Malik, in terms of the work the gift of the givers is doing. I say jazakallah to you for making the time for us, and may Allah continue to grant you the ability to go ahead and continue the good work, not just in Palestine, but across the world, and even here in South Africa with the problems that the world does face.
Yes. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much. And inshallah, together we can redraw the smiles of those children and the families who are now in suffering. Barakallah fikum. Thank you so much.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Dr. Malik Righaila, the Middle East representative for the Gift of the Givers. Of course, you just see their work that they are doing. They were there on the ground when it happened, and they continue to be there to rebuild the lives of the people that had suffered so badly over the last week. Well, that's all we have for you here on AQSA is Calling. From myself, Faraz Patel, and the rest of the production team, I will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.